There was sort of chaos around. There was helicopters, and you could see, homes going up and stuff. As we were evacuating, I could see the smoke and the fire racing down Singles Ridge Road, and I knew that it would be in the vicinity of our home.
We found out that our house had burnt down via a text message from our son. He had safely evacuated to Winmalee Shops, and quite frankly, once we knew he was safe and we believed that most of the street had already evacuated, nothing that happened could have been as bad as what we'd been imagining.
It wasn't long until somebody from my street who had been pulled out of our street came up to me and told me that our home had gone, their home had gone, and our street had been one of the most highly impacted streets.
I'm a wildlife carer. I have my own refuge here at Mount Victoria. When the actual bushfire came, my first thoughts were for my animals.
I think the insurance issue took all of us by surprise. My main concern the day after the fire was to check that my insurance was up to date. It was only when we started talking to planners and builders that we realised most of us were vastly underinsured.
This is not only your place going up, but your street being impacted, your friends, your neighbours, your community.
The more knowledge you have, the better prepared you will be.
My wife and I, Karen, moved up to the Blue Mountains in 1991 with a young child at that stage, and we built a home on Buena Vista Road. We always knew from the very first moment that we're up here that bushfires were part of this environment. We took out a policy. We did that probably with not much science attached to it. It was a product that we saw that we thought looked fair enough. We insured for a fixed amount. The process of determining what money we were going to get back in order for us to build our home again was somewhat unclear.
When I first moved here 31 years ago, the night before I actually entered the building, I insured with a local firm for the cost of what the building had been. And I never gave it another thought. About 10 years ago, I asked a builder friend of mine, would he evaluate the cost of rebuilding my home? When I got the result, I was so shocked because it was many, many thousands more, about 30% more at least. Yet when I made the extra payment to my insurance company, it wasn't that much money to pay out.
When you talk to an insurer about calculating your insurance, ask them if the amount they've given you takes into account your BAL rating. Your BAL rating, or your bushfire attack level rating, is probably the single biggest determinant of what your rebuild will cost. It determines the type of windows you can use, whether you can have timber anywhere on the outside, how many layers of stuff you need in your roof. All these sorts of things make the costs much more expensive than a regular house.
I think there's a general view that we all have of insurance. We insure our homes for a certain amount, and that's all we know. When you are actually taking out that insurance product, ask the question of, in the event of a fire, in the event of a total loss of property, explain to me what is the process, but also what does this product do? For instance, there are allowances in that insurance policy for rental. There are some insurance policies that you're able to extend that rental period beyond the 12 months. In our case, it's been almost 2 years and our rent ran out in January.
I think it's a wise decision to constantly review your insurance. Adequately insure it for a catastrophe. The old saying is, insure for the worst and hope for the best. At the time of a catastrophe, ask around where you can get some help. Support is out there. There's different groups in the community that are well known. They are there, willing and able to help you at the time you're facing your worst.
I think a really important thing to remember when you're looking at how much you're insuring your home for is that you're insuring it to rebuild it, and the values of properties that you see for sale is not a good indicator. So remember that it's about not the resale but the rebuild that you're trying to insure for.
So the journey for me has not been as hard as some people. I found that the process of insurance, even though it's long and lengthy, it does have a structure, and I did adhere to that without complaint, because always in the back of my mind was the assurance that I was adequately covered.
In a bushfire-prone area, the product that you buy is really important. I think there's a joint responsibility. There's a responsibility from the companies to give you good information, and if asked, to provide you with that good, clear information. There's also a responsibility for us taking out those policies to know them better than we do. And we ask the question, right, if I lose my home, what will happen?
Losing your house in a bushfire is a devastating experience, but if you're well insured, you can probably have a much greater chance of turning what's an awful experience into something that has some positives.
Be aware of your surroundings. If you've got a community fire unit in your street, be involved in it. You know, you learn to share ideas.
I think it's really important for people who live in a street where you are close to bush to have conversations with your neighbours about what they've found around insurance. You know, the more you can pool information together to build up a better understanding of what different insurers are saying, the more likely you are to have insurance that will cover your rebuild costs so that you're not out of pocket if the worst happens.
The more knowledge you have, the better prepared you will be.